So last weekend, I went to Pinfest for the first time. Oh, it was brilliant. It was absolutely magnificent. There'll be another extensive video looking back on Pinfest. I've got to say, it was one of the best weekends of my life. It really was. It was that bloody good. And if you haven't been and you're thinking of going, do it. Just do it. I expected to see lots of pinball machines there. I expected to play some pinball machines. There was a lot I expected, but there's one thing that I hadn't factored in. And that is until I spoke to Craig on episode 5, which was the competition, the tournament. I knew nothing about it. And if you've watched episode 5, then you'll obviously understand the process of me finding out about that. It was a real education. What I didn't appreciate was quite how much I would become invested in it, to the point where I spent all of the final day of Pinfest watching the tournament. It was magnificent. The drama of it was absolutely brilliant. And hopefully we can try and tap into some of that drama. And if you weren't there, talk our way through it today, because I'm lucky enough to have with me the winner of this absolutely wonderful, prestigious tournament. Lucky enough that the guy that was on episode 5, Craig, is back with me today. And we're gonna basically talk through his victory. Let's bring him in now. Good. Well, I was going to say good morning, good afternoon, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. And yourself, buzzing still?
Yeah, no, it was just an amazing weekend, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. You're back-to-back champion.
I am. It feels good. That's it's always been something that I've strived to achieve. Do you know what I mean? Doing it once is amazing, but it's really hard to do it again. There's so many good competitors out there that I said in our last episode that I honestly didn't have like high expectations. I wanted to qualify. I thought I'd qualify, if I'm honest, but you never know. But it's it's really, really hard to make it through the rounds, and then to go all the way again it's really, really tricky. So to do it again, I'm delighted.
Well, I'm actually in awe of how good you all are, really. On the last, I can't remember whether it was the bit where we were recording or it was our chat afterwards, you told me to speak to Wayne. I then went on, I spoke to Wayne. Wayne came onto the podcast. I joined when I first got to Pinfest. I mean, he works so hard doing that tournament. It's crazy that he then participates in it. But I got there on a Thursday, set up the Deadpool. Wayne showed me how it was done. And it was the first time I'd actually seen, I think, at that sort of level standard of player playing close up, and how you move the machine and the rescues that you do were really quite impressive. He's got the top score.
Has he?
He has, yeah. Which is fine and totally and utterly expected. There's pre-qualification on the Saturday, and it runs in. You can just sneak in if you're quick enough on Sunday morning and then qualify for the knockout round. You turned up Sunday, mate.
I did. I wish I hadn't. I wish it wasn't that way. I said this to quite a few people over the weekend. I wish I'd been there on the Thursday. I know you were there on the Thursday. I wish I'd been there and had the time to be able to be there for all those days, because I've done it in the past, and it's the best. Do you know what I mean? Because then you can have actual real time with people and have proper conversations and truly enjoy the weekend. Whereas doing it the way that I did is never the way to do it. But yeah, it needs must at this point. Like I said on the last one, I've got a 4-month-old and I've got a 2-year-old, and it was just absolutely impossible to get any more time. And that, basically as soon as it all ended, I had to just shoot off, and I felt really bad about it, because like in the past I've helped lug loads of machines into vans and stuff like that, and I'd love to be able to do that again. And hopefully in a few years' time, once my boys are old enough, I'll be able to get back involved with properly helping out again. But yeah, I basically turned up early on the Sunday, which is the way that I did it in 2019 as well. So yeah, I was there waiting at the desk, not basically trying to give them my money 5 minutes before, so they'd let me in. And then I literally ran up to Wayne and Paul up at the desk, because it's only an hour and a half that you've got on that Sunday morning. So from 10:30 till 12, and they were pretty like ruthless with it. It was 12 o'clock on the dot, and you know, unless you were in then and playing your last game, then that was it. They were switching the machines off. So I had an hour and a half to qualify, and there were a few others in that same boat that were only able to make it there on the Sunday. But it's always a bit of, you know, seat of your pants kind of thing. You know, even if you feel like you've got it in you, is kind of, well, in an hour and a half, how much can you do? And I know, speaking to a lot of other people, and also, you know, from watching the Never Drains app over the weekend and watching the scores on the Saturday and stuff like that, and seeing how many people are in the queue, it was very clear that Sunday morning was by far the busiest time in terms of the qualification on that bank of machines. You know, you know, there was queues of 3 or 4 or 5 deep at that point, and I'm thinking, oh my god, am I going to actually do this? But yeah, so it was a bit nerve-wracking to qualify, but I think it was my second ticket that got me in there. The first ticket, I actually scratched it, so I got rid of it. So I paid for 4 tickets, and I managed to get in that hour and a half 4 tickets done. So I literally was just like playing a game after game after game after game with no stop in between, and not assessing. And it was literally whatever the game that came up that was free, I was just saying to Wayne, stick me on that, or to Paul, you know, whoever it was who came to take my score, I was just like, stick me on whatever's free. I didn't, you know, kind of have a choice in terms of what game was. It was just whatever the shortest queue was.
Right, let me just I'll step back a little bit from that, just to explain to some people what a ticket is. There's a row of machines when you get there. Pinfest is a massive conference hall full of machines. There are some machines set aside which are there purely for competition play. They're tunes to within an inch of their lives. 10 machines, have we got that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
10 machines, of which you could choose 3. And each ticket, you choose 3 machines. And as I understand it, you play one machine, you play your first choice, second choice, your third choice, and then your aggregated score on that goes to basically put you wherever you may be on the leaderboard. But however, on each ticket, you can choose a separate 3 machines, or you can choose the same 3 machines if you wish. So what do you mean you scratch your first ticket?
So first game I played Jurassic Park. So I walked straight up. So I was Ian was about 5 minutes ahead of me, and he just had a pretty poor game on Jurassic Park. So I walked straight up, and I was like, and Jurassic Park was the one that, out of the whole bank, I was like, I know that game. I can play that game. So I wanted to get comfortable on a game. So I went straight to Jurassic Park, and I put 250 million up on it, which was at that time, I think, about high score 4, which is a brilliant start. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, really, really good start. And I was like, right, that's awesome. Second game, I played on Getaway, and I got no. What was the second game? I can't remember, but it was not a good game. It was like a low score. And then the final game was Getaway, and I put up like 20 million or something like that, you know, so really bad. So I started off with Jurassic Park. I put up a really good score that I was really happy with. But as you know, you have to be consistent over 3 games. It's no good just having one good game. So what I decided to do was void my entry. Okay, so not many people would have done this over the weekend, but I did it because I knew that I was comfortable on Jurassic Park, and you are competing against the best scores on that machine, including your own. So on that first ticket, on my next ticket, if I was to play Jurassic Park again, I was competing against my 250 million score. So if I just got, let's say, 240 million, then I would have been slightly further up if my 250 million score wasn't there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you see?
Yeah.
So I avoided it, so I wasn't competing against myself. So it's kind of like, that's really, like, if I'm honest, like higher level tournament play, and kind of over the years it's kind of like you understand why you would do that. But yeah, I avoided my ticket straight away so that I wasn't competing against myself, and so I could start again. But I had the experience on those 3 games. And so then I went again. And so there was no queue on Getaway. I just played Getaway. I only put 20 million up on it, but 3 balls on it meant that I felt a lot more comfortable on it, and I put up the high score for the weekend on it. I put 430 million on it, which was, I think the next best was about 210, so doubled the high score. So I actually didn't play my last ball on it because, again, I was worried about the time. I'd already realized that nobody else is going to catch that score. I knew I'd be getting the 100 points, so I was just like, I'm just going to not play the third ball and just move on to the next machine, because time was more important than actually carrying on and getting a much higher score, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that. So you would then call Paul over or something, or Wayne, and say, right, that's it. Just record the score from there.
I just plunged
you
it.
You drained the ball. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Right, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Right, I want to get into. Okay, so you qualified and you did really well, because there was obviously an excellent standard of play there, and there are a lot of people putting numerous tickets in to do everything they can to try and qualify. You get to the knockout stages, which I want to talk about. Actually, we'll talk about the knockout stages briefly, but it's really the final where the drama's at for me, because I watched you play that game on High Speed II. I'm pleased you explained it to me. I didn't know what was going on. Oh my God, he's lost it.
I'd already got that number 1 score, so I was just like, do you know what I mean? I'll move on to the next game. So then it was that second ticket with the getaway score that got me in. So I played Indy 500 next. I got like 300 million on that, which was about 15th highest. And then it was Jurassic Park at the end, and I put up I think I put 450 up or something like that, which was the 3rd highest score. So altogether, that meant that I was the 2nd qualifier overall, which, you know, was better than I thought that I would do, if I'm honest, in that hour and a half to get in. You know, obviously the aim was to get into the top 8. So basically the top 24 qualify, but the top 8 get a bye. So my aim was obviously to get into the top 8, because if you can just get a bye into the next round, that's ideal. And because I qualified 2nd, I managed to do that. So what happened was the next round, the 9th place to 24, they played against each other, but I wasn't involved in that. So I actually did some commentary then, and actually commentated on some of the games that were taking place there, because I got a bye. And then after that, it was then the top 16. So the 8 that were left from that round, plus the top 8 that were qualified, they played off against each other. So in that next round, I played a young guy called Nathan Garwood. He actually played Neil McRae in that opening round, and he beat Neil. So I knew he was pretty decent. I've seen him at other tournaments. He usually only really goes to Daventry, to be honest. He's a young guy, but he's capable. And Tim moved so Jurassic Park was the first one up, and he moved the rig straight to Jurassic Park to follow me. And I felt really comfortable on it. I got a really good qualifying score on it, and I think I got 30 million on it. So absolutely bombed. It was horrific, like the worst start that you could possibly. And Nathan had already done that after his 2nd ball, so he had a walk-off win against me in that first game. So I was just super nervous, and like I hadn't played tournament pinball for 2 years, and it was really weird. It made me feel like when I used to first go to tournaments, like really nervous, at just thinking I wasn't going to qualify. The second game, it was Ironman, and then I felt really comfortable on that, and I put 80 million up on Ironman, which is I think the top score in qualifying was about 40. I got do or die on the first ball, which was, I don't think I've ever done that before, which is a huge score. So I was really pleased and felt a lot more comfortable. And then the 3rd game was Hot Wheels. So I won that one. And then Hot Wheels was the 3rd game. And I'd never seen Hot Wheels before, never played it before. And after 2 balls, I was on 8 million, which would have been about last in qualifying with 8 million. Nathan had put up about 60 or 70 million, I think, going into the last ball. So again, my tournament life was on the line. I was going out, and I just managed to just pull it together, got a multi-ball, and just managed to scrape through by the skin of my teeth. It was like I really was so close to going out at that point, and I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? So I was so lucky to get through, really. And then then was the semi-finals, so then the round of 8, and then I was playing up against Peter Blakemore. Peter is I really know Peter very, very well. He's a really like highly competitive player, been I think as high as number 2 in the UK before. always in and out of the top 100 in the world, been to like the world championships and stuff like that, you know, really good, high quality player. First game was on Avengers Infinity Quest, which I'm sure we'll talk about with you at some point. But I don't know that game. I hadn't had a really very good game on it, and Peter managed to beat me on that. I think we both got around about 100 million, but he pipped me. It was you know, I was happy actually with the way I played at least, but he played better than me, so fair play. And then the next game was on the original Avengers. I just pipped him on that. We both didn't have a great game. It was low scoring, but I managed to just pip him. And then on the final game, it was actually on Led Zeppelin, which again, I didn't know, but I managed to work it, played pretty well on it. And unfortunately, Peter didn't have a very good game, which got me into the final. So that was kind of my route. I thought I'd just quickly talk through it.
No, absolutely.
Because I think it's important to talk about the route because it wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. Both times in the knockout rounds, in the first game, I lost. Do you know what I mean? In that first game. So I was, you know, I really had to work so hard in order to just get through to the final. And it was do or die. Do you know what I mean? If I had lost any more games, I was out. I was done. So, you know, yeah, I thought I needed to talk that through.
Well, I do want to talk about pressure actually in a little bit, and particularly in light of what you said about it being very busy. I found it really interesting watching people, and you talk about the congestion of and the hurried nature of the Sunday qualifying.
Yeah.
Actually say to somebody, you'll basically pay. You'll pay and you'll get in to this is in the initial rounds to try and qualify, and you'll pick your three machines. Now, it's a very, very different dynamic to picking a machine and then Wayne or Paul saying, okay, yeah, machine, they'll tap it in on the iPad, they'll say, there it is there. To actually somebody saying, oh, you say your machine, they turn around and say, okay, yeah, there you go, you're third in the queue, and you sit down in a chair. Yeah. And so I'd actually, sorry, can you hear me? I just knocked the microphone.
No, yeah,
you have time to think. So that's something I want to tap into later, because I found that really, really interesting. Just think it's worth saying while you're explaining the route through. Once you get past the qualifying, you're no longer in control of what you choose. Your three machines are chosen for you.
That's it.
So in the way that you said, what was it, Hot Wheels and Iron Man and the Getaway High Speed II, they were chosen for you. You've got no. This is just, again, I think ramps up the pressure. How does that change things for all of you? All you can
really great question, and something that I've come to terms with over the years. And so the UK, that has been quite often the way that tournaments are run. You don't get to they quite often the tournament directors think is too much of an advantage for the better players if they can just choose the games that they want to play all day and they're the best at them, then they'll always win. So they think it's better to randomize it. Pretty much every other country, they don't run it that way. They give the advantage to the better player, and they say you choose, and so you each get to choose a game. You know, Craig choose one, Peter choose one, and then on the final game, then you might get a random one if it goes to that final game. Okay. In this situation, then it's not in your control, which means you need to have experience on every single one of those games. And so that was my strategy. So what I was hoping was that one of my early tickets would get me in, and so then for my third and fourth ticket, I went and played on every other game. So I at least had experience of at least one game on each of the other machines. So, you know, 3 balls isn't a lot, but it's enough to know where the feeds are, to know how it is that the tilt is. That's really important. Do you know what I mean? So is it loose? Is it really tight? Is it hypersensitive? What are the flippers like? What do they feel like? You know, all those kind of things. I get all of that information under pretty, you know, intense conditions, but trying to kind of keep all of that together. So I at least had experience of every single game in that bank by the end of qualifying. And that was why I was playing so kind of intensely, because I was like, I need to get through these games because I need to see what they're like. For everybody else on the weekend, you know, they had hours and hours and hours to do that. And, you know, certainly, and in the free play time, you know, you had loads of games on each of those games, you know, and really get used to it. But, you know, for me in my position, I had to just kind of intensely go through it. But yeah, it's really tricky. And there's always going to be games that you're going to favour and lean towards, and there's always going to be games that you would really hope don't come up.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? When Wayne turned the laptop screen around and was like, these are the 3 games that you're playing, you're like, oh, okay, well, I've got one that I like, and then there's what, and I hope it doesn't go to the 3rd round, because that's going to be Hot Wheels. I don't have a clue what I'm doing on that. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's over to luck, but ultimately it's the same for everybody. You know, it's all random. So you've just, the best player will ultimately win at the end of the day. So you've just got to be good on all of it.
Well, I'm so pleased that you persuaded me to go in and go for it, because now I understand the whole dynamic of it. I really feel that I do. Well, just earlier when you said, because I do want to tap into this pressure thing, I really do.
Yeah.
Earlier on when you said Tim moved the rig to Jurassic Park, just explain to everybody, you know, what that is. Well, there's a couple of things I want to just explain, because I'm conscious we have new people that are new to pinball at the channel here. What Craig's saying is, basically, Tim he broadcasts the whole event. He runs it. It's like Sky Sports. Okay, he does so well. It's www.pinball.live. It's magnificent. Funny enough, I've met Tim before, but I didn't know he was doing this. Otherwise, we would have covered it more on this channel before the next one. I promise you, we really will. So you've got all of the scores up on screen. You've got some commentary going on, which is mostly Tim, Ian, and Neil, but obviously people would join in. Will joined in, Craig joined in, and sorry if I've forgotten others. There's so much going on. So you can actually watch this thing either live on screens when you're present, or you can watch it via an app live. So professionally and brilliantly well done by the lads. But what Craig's saying is, he went onto this one machine, which is Jurassic Park, and as he did that, they moved the cameras onto this machine because they focus on one machine at a time, which again is going to bring, I think, its own pressure. I didn't realize until yesterday that I had been recorded when playing one of my games as well. Good. I didn't know. Good.
Better to not know, for sure.
That's absolutely, that's no. And I also just want to point out, we're going to be talking about scores here, because particularly when we get down to down to High Speed 2 in the final, we're going to be talking about a number of points in hundreds of thousands, which sounds like a lot of points. In pinball terms, 100,000 is not a load of points. It's that much. Honestly, it's a fag paper. It really is.
Yeah.
As I look at it, Craig, I look at it as a dynamic. I see it seems to be 3 things that go into this competition: flipper skills, knowledge of the game, which I do think helps massively, as you said, which is why you were, again, to put it into context, a lot of people had Friday night to practice, had free practice on Friday night, where anyone in the tournament could practice on the tournament machines. Craig didn't have that. Flipper skills, knowing the machine and how you handle pressure. And anybody that's, as a mate, that's seen a mate crumble on a wedding day before making a best man speech knows that not everybody can stand up in front of a crowd and handle it in the same way as everybody else. This was a dynamic that probably fascinated me more than anything else. And when I was watching you, it was something that you said, again, I can't remember if we spoke afterwards or it was during it. You basically come from an acting background.
Yeah.
And I did wonder, I must admit, I thought, this has got to be helpful in some way, because you're seeing brilliant players there, and some of them, the nerves make them not achieve the scores that they would do if they were basically at home in their sheds playing on the machines, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. Being in front of people as well. Like, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Is you've also got a crowd there. Yeah. You know, that there's everybody who's there who's still at the show. All the machines switched off, you know, by 4:30. The finals run until 5:30. So all they can do is watch. You know, that's it, on the screens and watching you. I was chatting to Paul Owen, who was one of the other finalists, and he's not ever been in that position before. And I was really intrigued and interested to see how it was that he was dealing with that, and dealing with the pressure, and dealing with people watching. And he said it was, you know, completely foreign experience for him. I think the biggest thing for me is that I've done it before. That's the biggest crucial thing. Is the fact that I've been in that position a number of times before. And the first time I did it, was actually at Daventry. I think it was 2011. So that's a long time ago. So that was before it was the Pinfest. It was actually the UK Pinball Party, and it was the UK Open, and it was and that was a really foreign experience for me. And making it to the final, making it wasn't anywhere near as kind of like big in terms of, we didn't have the television coverage, we didn't have like what Tim was doing then, but there were still rows of people watching you. And my God, the nerves that I had at that point, the way that I was sweating, and I could feel my heart in my head. That's how I describe it. It's like, oh my God, this is like, I can't, how can you possibly deal with this? The pressure is immense, and my hands, like, just water pouring down my hands. And it's like, how can I possibly play pinball when I'm feeling this? And I remember it was on Dracula. And I managed to still win. And so it's kind of like, God, that gave me such confidence, from a very early stage in my competitive pinball career. It's almost like you going and winning it,
Sure.
Over the weekend. That was what it was like. There was 100 players in that tournament, and I went and won it. And it was like, oh my God. And nobody knew who I was. And it was a ridiculous start, really, to competitive. It was unfair. There'd been people who'd been playing for 10, 15 years, and they'd never won it, and I went in and did it. And it just gave me that confidence to kind of go, okay, I want to do this again now. I've got the hunger to do it again, almost, And so then I had much less success following that. Do you know what I mean? And never really achieved that level for a few years after that. But then you go there again, and you get more experience, and you do it again, and you do it again. And so then it's kind of like those nerves step aside almost, and you get a belief in yourself that actually, no matter what situation you're in, as I'm sure we'll talk about with the 3 games that were in the final, you can do it. You can come back. I thrive under the pressure. And I don't want that to sound arrogant, but like, that's actually true. It's kind of like, I do actually believe that my best play is not at home on my own in a garage. It's actually in that scenario. I do things that I can only do in that situation. I use the nerves to my advantage and play better because of it. So yeah.
I mean, it's some people in front of a crowd, they elevate themselves. Some people just find it incredibly difficult, and that's an additional battle for people if they have to fight the nerves as well. It's going to be tough. Saying that, I thought Paul did remarkably well, and I'm going to be tying in footage with this. So just so as you know, in the final, which the final's 4 people, Paul's in the Chelsea shirt. Will was in the light green t-shirt. Was the young lad in the light green t-shirt? Remarkable. Some remarkable performances there. And Andreas is in the darker green t-shirt. Obviously, Craig, you'll recognise there. Okay, so let's get to the final. First one, which was Iron Man. Tough game.
No,
Iron Man.
No, it wasn't Iron Man. It wasn't Iron Man. It was
Oh, so it's Avengers.
Avengers. That's it. Yeah.
Sorry, Avengers.
That's right.
If you pardon the expression, your ball got stuck.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Yeah. So that was an interesting one. So that was actually on my 3rd ball. So the first 2 balls, basically, I did nothing on it. Actually, well, that's a lie. Although I was only on 1 million going into my 3rd ball, what I had done is I had lit the low-key locks, which is really crucial in Avengers. So on the left-hand ramp, so basically you need to get all 4 in lanes in order to spell low-key, and that's actually really quite tricky to do on Avengers because there's no direct feed other than the Black Widow ramp on Avengers to the left in lane, and that Black Widow ramp is really hard to hit.
It's looping all the way round, isn't it, and then locks them on the right-hand side.
That's right. So I was one of the only people in the final that actually managed to light the Loki lock. So even going into my 3rd ball, even though I was dead last at that point, I still had that in my locker, and I was thinking, okay, well, I've got a way out here.
All right, so he started Loki multi-ball. This is very lucrative normally. He's dialed into that left loop.
It was in Loki multi-ball. I started Loki multi-ball, and then I was down to 2 balls. I shot it up to Hulk, and it got trapped under Hulk's arm. And that is a known thing. So what actually in the States, what they quite often do is they actually take the arms off of Hulk for the tournament play so that it doesn't happen. It got trapped up, and obviously, somebody else in that position may have just carried on. But, I know that the tournament rules, I know, again, because I've been to so many tournaments, what you have to do is, as soon as it's physically possible, you have to trap the other ball up because you're in multi-ball and get an adjudicator to come over and decide on what the situation was. So I called Wayne over and I said to Wayne, this is the situation. Wayne said, okay, the rule is play on. So I was like, okay, so we'll play on. And ultimately, with the balls flying about, you're going to release it anyway at some point. But yeah, it does take a certain kind of disposition to deal with that because, so for example, like Will is an incredible player. I've got so much respect for Will. He is the polar opposite in terms of play style to me. If you actually watch that stream back, you look at the way that Will plays, he is a completely on the fly player. He is constantly hitting the balls. And whereas I am somebody who traps the ball all the time and has the ball on the flipper all the time.
So just to say that trapping the ball is you're stopping play. The ball is not drained down into the machine. You literally rested the ball on the flipper. So you many times just stop, take a breath. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Exactly right. So I'm used to it. I don't need that kind of flow to carry on. It was kind of like, I'm all right at this point, even though I know I'm still behind at this point. I'm fourth in the beginning game of the final. I'm still okay because there's a ball in play and I know it's all right. And so I was kind of like back to it. And I did enough to get second place in that Avengers game. So I was actually really pleased that I was able to bring it back. Paul won that first game. Will was on about 8 million. So really my aim was to just make sure that I got, what the way that I think about it is just get a point, don't get zero. So the way the scoring works in the final is the winner gets 4 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point, and the fourth place player gets nothing. So the worst start is getting zero in that first game. It basically your back is up against the wall so much in that first game if you get zero. So going into that third ball, I was like, right, just aim for 1 point. Do you know what I mean? Just get myself back into contention to get 1 point. And then as soon as I get past that player, then I'm like, right, let's go for the next player. So I'm not ever going to like try and win it all because I don't, that's not necessarily achievable every single time, but it's just kind of like thinking incrementally, get past that one, get past that one, get past that one. And I managed to get past two of the Andreas and Will,
yeah,
and then it unfortunately Paul I couldn't quite achieve because he had a very, very good first ball and was just out of touch at that point. So yeah, I managed to take second place, which gave me 2 points going into the getaway.
Well, what you said about, Paul having a good first ball, again, that's another bit of pressure. So we come to pressure all the time. The ball gets stuck. How do you deal with that pressure? You rest the ball on the flipper, which is a standard skill, but you can imagine something that if someone was very nervous could make you, fall to pot sort of thing. You call Wayne over, you have the chat, and you get through. But Paul being that far ahead gives its own pressure again. And I do think this was probably a hallmark. It's what you said that was really interesting. It's not about winning every single thing all the time. It's about picking up what you can when you can. I think it was a hallmark of your journey, almost all the way to the end. There was a very interesting game that I did notice on Hot Wheels, but that's going back because I will do that right up until the point where you've got a wonderful score on Led Zeppelin, which we'll get to in just a second. So you got second on that. Now this is really interesting here. I will try and incorporate some footage because I don't want to overuse technical terms. But what seemed to be happening, so we're on High Speed 2, which was the second game that you played on.
Yeah.
Just above the flippers, there are some catapults, basically. They're called slingshots. And when a ball touches them, a solenoid goes off and it projects the ball. It could be anywhere. It's completely random. Hopefully, it usually projects it onto another slingshot and it goes pop, 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 pop. Up the playfield, comes down, you get a chance to hit it. Down the side of a pinball machine, you've got two out lanes, two side drains. Yours projected from the slingshot straight into the side drain. You don't have a chance to save this. And this is, what are you thinking then?
It's like the repeat of Jurassic Park almost from qualifying. Do you know what I mean? 450 million I got in Jurassic Park, and then as soon as I get into the knockout round, then I get 30 million. And I'm thinking, I got the high score, doubled the high score for the weekend on high speed. I'm thinking, brilliant. You know, when this comes up in the final, I'm thinking, awesome, absolutely awesome. I know that the way that game plays, you know what I mean, you can always conceivably do nothing on your first ball, or score nothing on your first ball on Getaway, because it's all about getting yourself to the point where the points are. So basically what you're doing is you're shooting the orbits to build the RPM around the outside, and you're working your way through the gears. And so basically the first and second gear are pretty worthless. The third gear is video mode, which is usually I say usually because it's kind of like, if you know the game, it's a guaranteed 27 million, about 27 million, because as long as you know how to play the video mode, it's pretty easy to complete. Saying that, Andreas and Will, they didn't manage to complete the video mode on their balls, but that's always an aim, to at least get to video mode and achieve that 27 million, because that's a decent score. And then the fourth mode is when it kind of really goes crazy, and then the fifth mode is Redline Mania. So, and that's the kind of the wizard mode. So if you can make it to there, then chances are you're going to win, and that's what I managed to do in qualifying. But the way to get there is you've got to shoot a lot of orbits, and that game is very, very fast. This is a Steve Ritchie game. It's really hard to control. The flippers, it's very hard to trap the ball, and so conceivably for the first ball or two, it is quite hard to get to that progress going.
Why is it hard to trap the ball? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your flow, Steve Ritchie flow. Why is it hard?
Yeah, because of the way that the game is set up. So that setup on Getaway, it was hard. Not Getaway in general. This particular, it was tilted at a certain angle or whatever, right? Yeah. So again, I was, this shows kind of my obsessiveness and my my kind of the way I'm thinking. So I was texting Stormy, so Nick Marshall, MUFC on the forum. So yeah, on the Saturday night, Stormy, so Nick, turned up to the tournament, and he qualified on the Saturday night, and I was following on the Never Drains app and I saw that he turned up on his second ticket. He got the second biggest score. Second, he went into second position. So I saw that he played on Getaway, and so I texted him and said, "How's Getaway playing?" And he said it was fine. So I was like, "Oh, right, okay," because I saw that the scores were pretty low on that machine, and so you understand. Once you understand these games, you understand what a good score is and what a hard so I would say like the average qualifying score on that game was probably like 40 or 50 million, that's probably above average, 50 million was probably above average, which if Getaway, that ain't a great score, if I'm honest. So I was thinking that must be playing really hard. And then I turned up, and Matt Vince, so Nick is an unbelievable player. I said that in my last podcast, and so he's a good benchmark for me to kind of understand kind of what's going on. But he said it was fine. He got about 100 million on both of his games, so which was right up there in terms of qualifying. And then it's got to the show. Matt said, so Matt Vince is one of the other top players in the UK, brilliant player. Matt said he's playing horrendous. So I was like, oh, right, interesting. He said, the shots aren't where you would expect them to be. So I was like, right, interesting. So that's what I mean about the flipper arrangement, the way that it's set up. So they were quite flat, the flippers, is the way I would describe it in terms of the way they Getaway. And it might be by a degree. Do you know what I mean? It might be literally nothing, but that does mean that your shots are slightly different to where, if Getaway like I do, I've got a Getaway. I've played them hundreds of times over the years, and when they're set up the way that you expect, it's kind of easy to play it. But this was something different. So you couldn't really comfortably trap the ball. So if you watch back that stream, very, very few times is it the case that any of us have the ball trapped on a flipper. There was one where I made a really, really nice live catch on the left-hand side. which was the only way that I was really able to gather the ball, was by performing a pretty high-end skill, a live catch, where basically you are hitting the flipper up at the same time the ball is coming down. So not a drop catch where you're dropping the flipper, but you're hitting up, and so you're deadening the momentum of the ball at the same time in order to get the ball to come into the cradle, which is a hard skill to achieve, especially when the flippers are very flat, especially in a situation where you haven't got a very big score and you need to really press on. So I actually did that on my third ball. Anyway, I digress. But it's important to kind of to show that there's a lot to this, I think, and the intricacies and the detail of that. I've kind of gone into it. But seeing as I'd done so well in qualifying, I felt like I'd figured out that flipper arrangement almost. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was frustrating to go. I was, again, same as Avengers, going into my last ball on Getaway, I was in last position. I was fourth out of four. I was on 19 million after two balls, which again, I got 435 million in my qualifying game, and I was on 19 million going into my last ball. So I was like, oh, this is so frustrating. But at the same time, I've been there before. I knew that I could put up that score. I'd already done it that weekend on that machine. So it was like, I knew I wasn't out. I wasn't out of it. And I guess, again, that is experience of me being in that position that kind of brought me through. And when you watch back that stream, Rich kind of said it on the stream. He said, Craig can do this. Craig's been in this position before. And it kind of, that kind of understanding and that kind of experience is the thing that enabled me to do it. So, yeah.
Well, I found it quite remarkable, and I thought it was, for me, the most dramatic part of the tournament. And to put it into football terms, I felt you were 3-0 down and you won 4-3 in injury time. I mean, it was extremely dramatic. You'll look at the scores, and as I say, I'll try and edit in as much footage into this as I can. For non-pinball players, you'll see 100,000 points, loads, right? No. It's really not. It was quite
it's one slingshot.
Yeah,
that's what it is, or sure. Like two pop bumpers or something. Do you know what I mean? So basically, what happened on that third ball? So just to kind of talk through what happened was I managed to get it to the fourth gear, which is third gear. I played video mode. So again, it was. All I was thinking was, so I got 2 points in the first round. I didn't want to get zero. Paul Owen was slightly ahead of me. I thought, as an absolute minimum, I need to get to video mode. Video mode was, I felt guaranteed 27 million because I know how to play that and get to that point. And luckily, I managed to make the shot and get myself that 27 million. So that doubled my score. So I literally went from about 25 million to 50 million. Which meant that I had a bit of a cushion over Paul. So that was my main aim, really, actually, just to get 1 point was what I was actually aiming for at that point.
Because Paul had beaten you in the first round.
Well, he was the person in fourth position at that point. So I was just trying, in third position. So all I was trying to do was get past third and then trying to get past second and then trying to get past first. But actually, Will and Andreas were quite a bit ahead. Will was on 90 million and Andreas was on about 110. Something like that. So, and I was on 19. Do you know what I mean? So I had a long way to go on that for final ball in order to achieve it. But I knew that if I get to the fourth gear, because I played that game in qualifying, I knew what my strategy was. So basically, it's a supercharger mode. And what happens is every shot on the playfield is worth 5 million. Except for the supercharger, which is worth 5 million incrementally. So a lot of people, they shoot the orbits or they shoot the other shots and they just get in 5 million. But I played that game in qualifying and that was a big portion of my score was shooting the supercharger. And what I was able to do was, shoot the supercharger, you get 5 million. And what I would do is I'd hold the left flipper up, give it a little bump it over straight to the right flipper and then shoot the supercharger again. And what that was, so that would go 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, 25 million. So I knew that I could basically catch them both if I played that mode well. And that's basically what I did. Not all of my score came from shooting the supercharger. I wasn't quite good enough to get into the rhythm of shooting it, but I shot it enough to get a large number of points from that. And then I shot a few orbits as well. And it was super fast. It was like, other games, it would have been a grind to get that score. But actually on Getaway, playing it that way, it was like, within 1 minute, I just chewed up a load of points, and it was, well, yeah, I'm sure you'll show it, but to beat Andreas by 200,000 was, it was a complete flipper fumble from me at the end. I'd obviously, the adrenaline was so high at that point that I was like flipping. And at that point, I knew the supercharger mode was ended, so I needed to regain control. I tried to regain control, and the ball just went straight down the middle. It was a stupid fumble from me. I should have easily passed Andreas, really, at that point, because I played that mode very, very well. But I mucked up, so I walked away, and I was like, oh my God, is it enough? And then obviously I looked back and I saw that it was, I'd beaten him by 200,000, and it was just like, it was relief more than anything. I was obviously delighted, but it was like, wow, like to go from last to first in that position was like fantastic. And Andreas actually came up to me, and he was gutted, because he was just like, now I can't, because he got 0 in on the Avengers game. He needed to come first in that game in order to be able to go on to win it. So even a second place on Getaway wasn't enough for him to win it, and we'll talk a little bit about the maths in a second. But he came up to me and was like, now I can't win. And I was like, I genuinely am sorry it was so close. I wish I'd done a bit more in order to like actually convincingly beat him. But that was it. And then it was Paul, and that was the thing. Paul, who had won the first game, if he won the Getaway, then he's already won the tournament. 2 wins and you're done because of the scoring, because it's 4-2-1-0. If you win 2, you win. So he was 4th player, and unfortunately he just wasn't able to put anything together, which then really opened the door for me, because he came last on the Getaway, which meant that he'd won the first one, but they came last on the Getaway, so he was only on 4 points. And whereas I was on 6, because I came second and first, I was on 6. So it was, and the other 2 had actually shared the other points, so they were only on 2 points each, so they couldn't win going into the last game.
In the final round, they can't win going into Led Zeppelin, which, as we know, you've not played until you got there on the Sunday, right. And it's a relatively new game. Let's be fair. I think possibly lockdown and it hasn't helped with these more recent releases, because most people not been able to go to pinball clubs and play these titles anyway. You had a very different. We've already spoken about particularly on Avengers, and of course on High Speed 2. You've clawed it back from behind. Great first ball on Led Zeppelin, and I felt at that point you've really put the pressure on at that point.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's I was so much more relaxed on Led Zeppelin, because I felt like I was in control. I had everything going for me in that position. I was leading in terms of points. So the points were 6-4-2-2. So the only people that could win the tournament were me or Paul. And Paul was player 1. And Paul had a terrible first ball on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So I'm there sat in 4th position. And position actually really, really matters, because you get to see everybody else's score before you. And nobody really had done much on the first ball. And so I was like, I'm in the best position. I've got the most number of points. I'm in 4th. Everything's in my control here. And so all of a sudden, you could probably physically see it in terms of my mannerisms, in terms of the way that I played. But I felt like I was really in control. I had an inkling. I actually sat next to Greg and David Dutton, who is Will Jarvis's dad. And I said, I feel like Will find this game out, because it suits him down to the ground, because it's a multi-ball fest. If you know how to get into multi-ball on Led Zeppelin, you can just string multi-ball after multi-ball after multi-ball. And I thought that Will would do it, and he did. But the others didn't manage to get anything going. So it's the beautiful thing about competition, isn't it? Actually, the game that won it for me was Getaway. That was the one, because all the pressure was on, all the stress was there, and I just managed to come through and grind through it. Led Zeppelin was almost like a swan song a bit, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, actually, Paul was the only. If Paul had beaten me, then he wins. If I beat Paul, I win. That was the whole situation that was playing out, and I managed to really have a very good game on Led Zeppelin, and Paul unfortunately didn't. And that was basically it.
Yeah, I mean, but the dynamic of that, of Paul going first and having a poor ball, which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, when you build yourself up to do something like that, and particularly if you feel the machine's been unkind to you as well, you've got
Yeah.
that whole thing to sort of work through in your mind, and then for you to go on him and have an excellent first ball, then when he
Yeah.
starts his second ball,
Yeah.
just the pressure of then knowing, oh, this is a massive uphill struggle against someone who's playing well. So you sorry, just you spoke about you spoke about David there. He won the classics tournament. It's probably
That's
worth
right.
saying. So
That's right. Yeah.
a pretty supreme pinballing family there, because Will
Absolutely.
did play. So Will actually won the final game.
He did. He did.
He won that final game on Led Zeppelin and played terrifically well. By the time you got to the third ball, you said to me when I spoke to you, you said you knew you'd won it then because you know you were able to relax, enjoy yourself, and you even asked if anybody had any requests. When if you don't know, the modes in Led Zeppelin are actually the Led Zeppelin songs. So when you choose a mode, you're actually choosing a song there. So yeah, you said if anybody wanted any requests there. I do love the game actually, but
me too. I really enjoyed it.
It's good. But there you go, and you win. And I found it quite an interesting contrast, bearing in mind how hard the tournament was for you.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting actually for you to have the last ball without really any pressure on, which was which is great.
It was just enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? It was just enjoyable, and that's why I was mucking about a bit, because it was kind of like isn't to say that I didn't play as hard as I could. Do you know what I mean? I really tried to pass Will. Do you know what I mean? Because there was money on the line, and you know, if I had passed Will, then Paul would have ended up in second, and so the difference in terms of that would have been about £100. Do you know what I mean? So there was no way I was going to throw it, but at the same time I wanted to enjoy the moment. I was, you know, the last ball of the tournament I'd won. I wanted to enjoy it as well, you know.
Well, I thought it was absolutely magnificent. I mean, it's as obvious and a stupid question, but I am interested because you must have felt $1 million at the end there. That's a great feeling, right? With everybody watching you and you winning and being a champ. That's great.
It is. It's kind of what keeps you coming back. You know, is that the intensity of and the pressure of what you go through in that environment, playing against the best, realistically, every single one of the best players in the UK were there. To go and win it all is an amazing thing to achieve, and you want that buzz. Do you know what I mean? You want to aim for that, and once you get a taste for it, it's kind of like, God, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. You know. So yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome feeling.
Yeah, obviously double. Now that is that the biggest tournament in the UK, the Pinfest one?
So, in terms of the tournament scene, in terms of the number of people, in terms of the kind of the gravitas of it all, yes, 100%. Certainly in terms of the money, you know, that was actually the biggest prize pot ever in UK history. I can't say UK history because I don't know what was going on in the 80s and stuff like that when I wasn't alive. But, you know, in terms of
50 grand a win,
yeah. yeah. But, you know, so I won 610 quid and I won 585 quid in 2019. So, you know, no other tournament in the UK is you know, we don't really normally play for money. You know, it's normally just a trophy that you win. So that was a big deal. So yeah, there's no other tournament that comes close in terms of that respect. However, and this is something this up for debate with a lot of people that would say that it isn't the biggest tournament, is because of the point situation, which I briefly touched on in our last one, and that is something that matters to a lot of people, is the ranking points. Now, Paul and Wayne, which as I said in the last episode, you know, the way that they had set up the format, and in my opinion, again, absolutely justified for doing it. I think it's the perfect format for this tournament, for this show in this regard. What they cared about was the experience that everybody had and trying to get as many people to play as possible. They don't care, you know. And Wayne has outrightly said he doesn't care about the ranking points for this tournament. So this tournament won't actually be the highest ranking tournament, which is again is a bit nerdy, but that's it in the UK. So in fact, there's actually another tournament in 2 weeks' time at Nils that will probably be worth more points because of the format. So that it will be less players. It was still a lot of players all at Nils' house, in his arcade at the end of the garden. But that tournament will grade out to being worth 100% of the value of the points, which I won't go into too much detail with that because that is proper geeking out. Because basically, the quality and the standard of the tournament is dictated by the IFPA, the governing body of pinball, and basically they grade the tournament that we played in at Pinfest as it's probably going to come out at about 72% because I won it last year, so I know. So in terms of the amount of points that I'll probably get about 25 points for the win. Whereas if whoever wins Nils in 2 weeks' time will probably get more than that, probably closer to 30. So, it's the way that you view it. For me, in terms of the biggest tournament in the UK out there, it's definitely one of them. If not, it's certainly the one that you're going to get the biggest crowd. You're going to get the television stuff. You're going to get the money. It's definitely the one of, if not the one to win. So yeah.
Well, I found it incredibly intoxicating in many respects. I played one game of pinball on the other machines that whole day.
That's mad, isn't it? If I'd said that to you 2 weeks ago, you'd have thought it was crazy, that you would spend a whole day in a venue with 125 pinball machines and you played one game.
Yeah, I would. Talking to people I'd not met before about the intricacies of who was doing what and who was playing well. And actually, you talk about Ian. Ian, you mentioned him earlier on. Ian played very, very well. Actually played really, really well. So it was some really good players there.
Yeah.
I found it absolutely amazing. I really did. And I've got to say, incredibly inspiring, actually. Yeah. I did. To watch you guys and to watch you top level players and particularly your ball saves. And I decided to come away from it. But I'm going to practice. I'm actually going to practice. Now I play pinball anyway, obviously. Well, I'm actually going to practice. And I did. I came back here, even after a whole weekend of playing pinball.
Did you?
I came here, I was banging the hell out of Elvira. Oh my goodness, that sounds awful. I wasn't banging the head up. Oh my God. Oh, dearie. Banging the hell out of Elvira. Bless her. I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, and just it was when I first saw Wayne do it, where he would bang the side of the machine at the same time as flipping it.
Yeah.
So it would just sort of catch the end. It's when it's going to go straight down the middle. And I did it.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is really good. And believe it or not, I was actually playing it up until about 11:30 last night, and this is after a whole weekend of pinball, because that whole competition side it's amazing how addictive it is just to keep your eye on it, and it makes you, watching you guys makes you want to play better. And I'm not on my own, because I've had a few of my mates phone me up and say they've been practicing. Andy was on episode 1. Him and his girlfriend Stacey went home and they've been practicing their skills, and moving the machine I think is a massive.
I was seeing some of their chat on the forum, because again they're competing with each other and they're pretty even. It looks like, because they I think she beat him in one of the other tournaments, and they ended up really right next to each other in terms of the ranking. Yeah, no, that's it, isn't it? It is when you understand what's going on and you've experienced that tournament, and if you've got, like I said in that first episode, if you've got that competitive bug in you, it's. Yeah, you want to get better, don't you? You want to be able to do these things, because, and actually the things that, you can see, you can think they don't look that hard, but then so then you try it and then you try it again and try it again and try it again, and you kind of go, I can do this, and you do it once and you kind of think, was that fluke? And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you think, I need to master this now. Do you know what I mean? And then you kind of go, okay, I've got that one skill in the bank. Now let's go on to the next and to the next. So I wanted to talk about your about your journey though, if that's all right, just through the tournament, because I know I wasn't there, but I was following your progress and I was following what was going on, because obviously I had kind of incentivized you to give it a go.
Yes.
And you know, and so you initially put your tenner in, didn't you? You didn't put the 20 in for your 4 games. You put your tenner in.
You were following.
I watched you. I was thinking, okay. So he's going to give it one go. And I watched your entry and I was watching your scores. So yeah, definitely check out neverdrains.com, because it's an incredible site. Carl D'Angelo's system, the whole system that Paul and Wayne were using, it's just incredible in terms of the way that they run it. And so I was sat at home, and obviously it wasn't being streamed at that point because Tim because he wanted to enjoy the rest of the weekend. He wasn't streaming everybody's qualifying games.
He did. Don't worry. Thursday night, I found him in the bar at about 1 a.m.
Good.
And he caught me sneaking out to my van to get a pot noodle.
Good man. That's what I want to see, Tim, because he is one of the hardest working people at the whole of Pinfest for sure, and he deserves massive praise for everything that he did, because oh my god, that streaming was just insane. But anyway, yeah. So I was following your progress on Never Drains, and I saw your first attempt, and I was like, oh, interesting, because you put up the second, at that point, it was the second highest score on Avengers Infinity Quest. It was about 125 million, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like when you're in that situation. And yeah, your other 2 games were crap.
Yeah.
But you've done that on Avengers. So the way that the points scoring system works is you get 100 points for the top score, and then the second score will be 95 points. So if that score had held up all weekend, in fact, that Avengers Infinity Quest score for the whole weekend was the 4th highest score. So you got a huge number of points on that game. And when you do that, and when you're looking at the screens and stuff, I know you're thinking, ooh, you know, I've done that. I've done that. You know, everybody else hasn't done that yet, and I did that. So you didn't make the cut line, but you're just below the cut line. Because your Avengers score, the other 2 scores didn't do you justice. You know, you hadn't done enough with that. But I was thinking, is he going to have another entry? You know, because you said you'd have one go. You said I'll have one go. And I was thinking, but he's got the taste for it now. Surely, is that right?
Honestly, my poor mates in the bar that night. I'd had so many beers. And then so we were playing the charity machines, Chris B's and Phil's Pinball Evans machines in the bar, and we're putting money in there. Oh god, I know I was probably insufferable, because at that point I was drunk. I was telling you I was the second best Infinity Quest player in the country or whatever. Honestly, I was coming up with some nonsense. Fortunately, I whooped them. They're watching now, Spencer, Stacey, and Andy on that. But I was insufferable, so I do apologise.
Good man. That's the way it should be.
Cocky little shit.
Put your name up there, yeah.
I did, but it was magnificent, and it feeds into. So I did catch the bug. In answer to your question, no excuse for Jurassic Park, because I know the game. I'll be honest with you, I just did it on skill shots because I know the skill shots.
Okay.
And actually on one of them, I got the skill shot, got the super skill shot, which is, you know, launch it out the thing, one ramp, bang, and the second ramp. I know that. That's almost in my muscle memory. The really annoying thing is I put up 56 million on HS2. I've never played it before. And I came away from there, and then it was David said to me,
but this was on a different ticket, wasn't it?
This was on a different ticket. It's on a different ticket.
Yeah.
And he said to me, did you know about the changing the gears? I said, what?
Yeah.
I didn't know about this thing, and all these nuances about the machine, which is why I say the flipper skills, I know I can improve on. They must be improved because they're pretty bog standard. I don't particularly get nervous anyway, so that's not overly a concern. That being said, I think maybe my lack of nerves is because I expect it to be crap. Maybe if the higher your expectations, I would imagine the more the nerves build, you know.
That's really interesting, because that's exactly what Paul said. So his response to me, because he was in the final, obviously.
Yes.
But he just said his expectations were really low, so he didn't get that nervous. He thought he was going to come last, you know what I mean? So which is a real interesting mentality to have, because he's a very good player. He's just made it to the final of the biggest tournament in the UK, and so I feel like that will change for Paul now. You know, he's been there. He didn't come last. He came third, and so then it's like, well, the next one, you know, maybe perhaps that will change. You know, but that, yeah, I understand what you're saying there.
Well, but then the third one, which is, as I say, there may be more facets to it, but I look at it in terms of dealing with pressure, flipper skills, or, you know, whatever, cabinet skills, whatever the case may be, and game knowledge. And game knowledge massively let me down. It is no coincidence that my two best games that I had were two games that have lived in this shed. So I need to get out. I did try some of the others, and also I know that there were people who were. I'm not sure I'll ever get to this stage where I look at a stream and learn the rules for something, but just the benefit of learning the skill shot, which is just a simple thing on each game. I would certainly, if anybody's thinking of doing it, because I know there are 3 or 4 people you look on the forum who've said they've done it, and I can't even remember who's posted. Someone's posted a wonderful post today, a write up of Pinfest, and they've pretty much said, right, okay, I'm going to practice, and next year I'm coming back, and you better watch out. Love that. I mean, I just love it. I love that sort of attitude. If I had to give anyone any advice, having sort of tried it, had one good game, and then failed at the rest, it would be learn some skill shots. Even if you don't learn every bit of every game. I remember Neil saying to you after Led Zeppelin, even though you'd won, and I know you come second on Led Zeppelin, he said, "Oh, you didn't realise you were one shot would have. I don't know what shot was, but it would have opened up something else." Yeah, which you don't know the game.
Obviously, I am the geek who watches the live streams and all that kind of stuff. So that was the way that I did it. So Raymond Davidson, who is the world #1. Was actually the programmer on that game, and he did about an hour stream of how to play it. So I watched that before I went to the tournament. And basically there's this thing, I still don't get it, but Neil said that basically this Icarus X. So basically across the middle of Led Zeppelin, there's this way of multiplying your combo shot. So you make combos, and then you shoot one of the drop targets, and it will combine it based on how well you're playing, basically. And Neil said that I was up to like 5x on Icarus, and I knew that it was happening, but I didn't know where to shoot. And he said it was the rock targets, and so I just didn't know that, you know. So the game knowledge, so what you're saying is basically exactly the attitude that I have. Is know just enough to get yourself in. Don't go into it completely blind where you don't know anything, but have a little bit of a strategy. And so I had that on a Zeppelin. I had but I didn't know the depth of it. You know, I didn't know the finer details, which, you know, if I was to, but it was clearly enough in order to achieve the win, you know, so that I had enough of a strategy. But, you know, if somebody had known it to the level that Neil knew it, and had made the Icarus X shot and made it worth a load of points, then they would have beaten me, you know, and that's just the way it goes. But you can't know the rules to the nth degree on every single game in the world, you know. So it's you do enough to get by, and luckily I did. So yeah.
And I guess you get a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of notice before each tournament, where you know which games are going to be in it. So are you going to Neil's?
I am going to Neil's, yeah.
So well, at the moment, you know which games do you?
Yeah, but Neil's games are he's got a lot of games, an awful lot of games, and they are all new. Well, no, not all new. He's got a couple of older ones, but it's, you know, Elvira. I've never ever played an Elvira. He's got all the newest stuff. He's going to have the Mandalorian there. So all of these rules, and you know, again, this is one of the big things that's been talked a lot about over the weekend. Is about the depth of these newer games, you know, the complexity of the rule sets in the newer games. It's unless you really, I genuinely feel that unless you own it, or at least unless you've spent a couple of months with a game, you're never going to be able to fully appreciate what's going on. So I go into Neil's, I'll have a strategy for each game, but it will just be a minimal strategy. Do you know what I mean? It just enough how to get into a multi-board, just how to get a decent score, which will hopefully be enough to at least get me some points. You know, I might not be able to win every game against those people who really know the game or have got the game or whatever. You know, but I'll have a strategy for at least something. I won't go into it kind of not having a clue about it at all.
Well, I'm sure you'll do well. I'm sure it'll be a great event as well. And just really delighted for you. Delighted
mate.
that you encouraged me to. I really, I said that to you on the day.
You did.
It expanded the event massively for me, and what was just a remarkable weekend. And I'm just amazed by all the work that everybody had put in. I mean, not just Graham was there, of course, and Paul and Wayne doing the competition, and we've already spoken about Tim doing all the commentary, but just for Phil to put on this event and everybody that helped out, that the staff there, you just see these these blue shirts beavering around it. Machine went down, it was up again, so quickly. And just everybody that donates these remarkable machines. And you know what? I read a few horror stories beforehand on the forum. Got to tell you, you know what? There it is. There, I took my pinball machine. There it is back. It's absolutely fine. I've still even got a couple of scores on it, which I'm absolutely delighted about. A great event, and I just can't speak highly enough of Pinfest.
No, it was, and that's why I was gutted, really, because I feel like I didn't. I can't be gutted because I won the whole thing, but I didn't get to enjoy the show in the same way as you did. I hope the day comes where I can experience it again. And I didn't even play a single game in the hall. I only played the games in the tournament bank. So I didn't get to even play on Mandalorian or anything like that. Which is a bit of a shame. I've only got the experience of the tournament, and so that's all I can kind of really talk about. But it was amazing. It was absolutely incredible, and I'm glad that it was a good experience for you in terms of the tournament. So I was looking at it from on Never Drain. So you ended up in 40th position out of, I think it was 75 in the end. So I told you wouldn't be last. I said to you wouldn't be last, and 24 qualify. So you're only 15 spots off of qualification, and if you had struck, you had, in the end, I think you put 5 tickets in or something like that, 4 or 5 tickets in.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
I said, Paul, take some more money. Take my money.
Yeah, exactly. Speak to Neil about that. He had a few entries. Let's just put it that way. But if you would put all your best scores together,
yes,
you would have been about on the 24th bubble, around about there, right on qualification. Do you know what I mean? So it was there for you. Do you know what I mean? You had the skills to do it. It's just doing it together over 3 games on the same ticket. That's in this format, the crucial skill. And so, I'm glad you got the bug a bit. It's
I have.
Awesome.
One day, I will. Well, I'll try every year. I'll go in that every year, and hopefully one day I would like to qualify for that knockout round, just to sample it, just to just to do that. Having seen all your guys' reactions, there was a bit where I was watching Will play. Oh my god, it's ridiculous. Going everywhere. Okay, well, I'm just never going to get anywhere near that level. There's just no doubt.
Tim actually asked Will about that, because his style is so unique. Right. I've never seen anyone play like Will, if I'm honest. Like, in terms of the way that he hits the flippers like that, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sure.
And Tim asked him about it, about this, because he basically flaps, doesn't he? He just goes like bang, 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 like hits the flippers so hard, and it's when he's in a multi-ball. And the way that he described it was about kind of, he said, I haven't, he doesn't play like me in terms of, because the way I do it is in multi-ball, I try and trap all of them on the flippers, so have multiple balls on the same flipper and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas Will is saying he doesn't play like that. So he wants as many at the top end of the playfield so that he can play with one down here. So he flips them away, and then he's trying to play with one, which I don't think I've seen an awful lot of competitive players. There are on the fly players, and then there's Will, and in the way that he plays, it is really unique player, and a top player that would really, a fantastic player. And he did come second again. But yeah, it really, really interesting to analyse and watch, in my opinion.
Well, as is everyone, it's thrilling to watch. I know we're running out of time. I just want to say this as well. He plays with his hands off the buttons. His hand travels a lot before it hits the buttons. I was watching that thinking, I mean, far be it from me to to criticize. It clearly works for him, and
Exactly.
and it's clearly working. You watch some people stance, some people one leg in front of each other, leading back.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never take my hands are never off the buttons.
Yeah.
So I'm basically doing that. When I'm
So what am I doing then?
Well, I do notice you before you address the machine.
Yeah.
You wipe the bar.
Yeah.
You wipe the buttons.
Bottom of my t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely. You wipe your hands.
I'm pretty upright, aren't I?
You're pretty upright. But I would. One thing I do notice, I think a lot of your weight is. What's am I talking about?
I've
been doing this for 2 seconds. What do I know?
Weight transfer is a real thing.
Your weight is on your palms.
Okay.
So you actually got quite a lot of weight on the machine. I feel, but not so much that you're so hunched over. Whereas I noticed there's a few people, particularly those that stand back from the machine with a split stance.
Yeah,
their weight is more on their legs. You're very much. It's a shame I can't. Your palms are on the lockdown bar, either side of it, and you're playing with your fingers basically rather than your hand. I've never seen any. It was just the first things that came to mind when I was watching people.
Honestly, mate, it's something that you've got all of the obsessive streak in you that kind of suggests to me that you could be really into this competitive scene, because that's exactly the stuff that I think about. Do you know what I mean? And the top players, like I have analysed what Keith Elwyn does. I've analysed what Zach Sharp does. Sure. So you look at the way their stance, they are so relaxed. Like they are completely upright. They don't put any weight on the machine. It's all just fingertips and upright. You look at like Kaylee George or Lyman Sheets as a prime example. So he's one of the old school best players. They are absolutely almost bending down, legs so far apart and getting down. His the way that he describes it is he wants to be as close to in line with the playfield as he can be. So he's washing it just over the lockdown bar. It's insane. And these are all top players, and they do it so differently. So working out, I asked you genuinely if you had analysed me, because I have an idea of what I look like from video, but again, you're not really aware. And I do think about it. I do think about that weight transfer. I remember Phil Dixon, who's also one of the really good players in the UK. He talks about it. He says you shouldn't put any weight on that lockdown bar. His absolute advice to anybody who's trying to get into being a better pinball player is don't put any weight on it, so that then when it comes to nudging, you can then use the force. Whereas if you've got the weight in there, then it's harder to transfer it to when you're nudging, which makes sense, doesn't it? So
I'm not sure how much. I mean, I know I said that. Whereas I feel you're not putting a lot of pressure on the buttons. I do feel your weight is distributed probably more evenly. Than watching Andreas play, his weight is all on his front foot.
Interesting, yeah.
His back foot seems to be out quite a lot. His weight's on his front foot.
I don't know if anyone else is going to be interested in this, by the way, mate. It's probably just me and you, or very few.
Absolutely. I'll talk about banging Elvira again now everyone's gone.
This is super geeky.
The lady that was in it.
Yeah.
Very, very low stance.
Louise,
legs well back from the machine as well. Whereas your legs are very close to the machine. So you're right.
Yeah, Louise is one of them.
Ultra geek.
A lot of the Dutch players as well have that stance, like Louise Wagensonner had. So like Jasmine de Jong, who's also one of the best female players. Paul Jongma, Albert Nomden, all of these Dutch players, they literally get right down and have their legs apart, really, really wide. Just mentioning about Louise. So Louise, she's from America. She was born in Wales, but she's married to an American, a guy called Eric, who is also a brilliant pinball player. Louise Wagensonner has been the #1 female in the world. She is a fantastic pinball player, and she came over for the tournament. I'm guessing she was apparently she did a triathlon only a week before or something like that in the UK. Probably came over to see family and tied it in with Pinfest, which is just awesome that she made the trip to the show as well. Honestly, I could talk about this forever because it's so geeky, but I love it.
It is, and funny enough, I've got a little theory on fitness as well. But there you go. That's for another. Seriously, I have. That's for another time anyway. Cool. Yeah, it's crazy. What a crazy hobby, Craig, mate. Honestly,
loved fantastic. It, mate.
Honestly, honestly, I could talk for hours. And we probably will talk plenty more. I've no doubt about that. Right, I'm gonna get rid of Craig now. Wait there, please, mate. Please do.
Cheers, buddy.
Listen, seriously, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was Craig. That was magnificent. I love doing this. I love this. I love doing this. I love pinball. There's loads more videos to come. It's pointless me waffling on until the end. I'm going to bung the end slate up now. I'm absolutely blown away, by the way, for everybody that's subscribed recently. We're up to 1,500 subscribers on the channel. This is great. If we can get this hobby to grow and grow and grow, get more and more people involved, then it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. And if you're on anything other than pinball info, you're on Facebook group or anything like that, please do share this video. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Craig, and don't forget, keep them coming in. Anybody that wants to come on and join in this podcast, you are very, very welcome.